I thought my brother was stealing money from me. It turned out to be so much worse. I always thought I was good at noticing the small things. The squeak in the floorboard near my bedroom door, the subtle scrape of my car's brakes when winter comes around, the way my brother, Adam, chews the inside of his cheek when he's lying. I noticed all of it. But somehow, I didn't notice the money missing until it was too late to ignore. It started small, 20 here, 10 there. At first, I blamed myself. I'd always been careless with cash. I'd toss my wallet on my dresser, let loose change fall between couch cushions, leave crumpled bills in the pockets of my jeans. Maybe I'd lost it. Maybe I'd spent more than I'd remembered on gas station coffee and stale breakfast sandwiches. But when it kept happening, week after week, I couldn't brush it off anymore. And the worst part was, I already knew who I suspected. Adam had been living with me for 8 months. It was supposed to be temporary, just until he got back on his feet, which is universal code for forever, if you ask me. He crashed his car, lost his job, and Mom begged me to let him stay. Family looks after family, she'd said. Right. Well, apparently family also rifles through your stuff when you're not home. I tried to talk myself out of it. I really did. But the signs were too obvious. He was always in the apartment, but never seemed to have money for groceries. He'd borrow my headphones and my charger without asking. And now my money too, apparently. It ate at me, this sick little seed of suspicion. I'd watch him from the corner of my eye when we sat on opposite ends of the couch, both pretending to watch whatever garbage Netflix was feeding us that night. I'd wonder if he was looking at my wallet on the coffee table, counting the bills in his head. I hated feeling like this. I hated him for making me feel like this. One Friday night, when I knew he'd be at his friend's place, his only friend, as far as I could tell, I tore my room apart. I counted every dollar I had. 60 in my wallet. Another 40 in the kitchen junk drawer. A 20 tucked in an old birthday card from our aunt. I wrote it all down on a sticky note and slapped it to my monitor, just in case I forgot. When I heard the apartment door creak open around midnight, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind a carousel of ugly thoughts. Maybe he needed it for weed. Or booze. Or worse. Maybe I'd wake up one day and find my laptop gone, my credit card maxed out, my brother vanished. Saturday morning, I checked the money again. Down by $20. I sat at the edge of my bed with the sticky note in one hand and the remaining cash in the other, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I wanted to storm into his room and scream at him. I wanted to demand an explanation, an apology, something. But what if he just lied to my face? I didn't trust him to tell me the truth. So I decided to catch him instead. It wasn't exactly sophisticated. I ordered a cheap motion sensor camera off Amazon. I hid it on my bookshelf, wedged between dusty textbooks and a coffee mug full of dead pins. It had a clear view of my dresser, my wallet, the door. I told myself I was doing this because I wanted proof. But the truth is, I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I wanted to watch him do it, watch him betray me, so I could stop feeling like I was losing my mind. When I went to bed that night, the camera's tiny green light winked at me in the dark. It felt wrong, like spying on my own blood. But I told myself he'd crossed that line first. The next morning, I left early. I needed to give him the chance, didn't I? So I went to the diner down the street, nursed a burnt coffee for 3 hours, then came back when I figured he'd had plenty of time to snoop. I was sweating when I pulled the footage up on my laptop. My hands were shaking. There was this sick part of me that almost hoped I'd find nothing, that I'd wasted my money on paranoia. But there he was. Clear as day. Adam creeping into my room like a ghost, glancing over his shoulder like a bad movie cliché. He opened my wallet, counted the bills, slipped one out, shoved it in his pocket. And that was it. That was all I needed. Proof. I should have felt vindicated, like I'd won something. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the paused frame of my brother stealing from me, and all I felt was tired. I didn't know what to do next. Scream at him? Kick him out? Call Mom and dump the mess in her lap? But as I scrubbed through the footage again, something else caught my eye. He didn't just pocket the cash and leave. He hesitated. He looked around my room, like he was searching for something, someone. Then he sighed, rubbed his eyes, and slipped out the door. I fast-forwarded. The next clip showed him in the hallway, pulling on his hoodie. He checked his phone. He looked small. Smaller than I'd ever seen him. Where the hell was he going at midnight with a stolen 20? That question festered in my brain for hours. Long enough for me to make a choice I hadn't planned on. I'd follow him. Next time, I'd follow him and see exactly what my brother was doing with my money. I thought I was ready for anything. Drugs. Gambling. A girl he didn't want me to know about. But the truth was worse than all of that. Worse, because it made me hate myself for ever thinking the worst of him in the first place. I spent the next 3 days pretending I didn't know. Pretending everything was normal. Pretending I wasn't watching him like a hawk every time he walked past my wallet. I'd nod when he mumbled hey in the mornings, force a grunt of agreement when he asked if I'd paid the electric bill. All the while my stomach was twisting itself into sailor knots. The hidden camera caught him 2 more times. Same routine. Sneak in, slip out a 20, vanish for an hour or two. He'd come back empty-handed and quieter than before. He never looked at me straight on, just hovered in the kitchen, staring at the kettle as if boiling water was the hardest thing he'd ever done. Wednesday night, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to be that guy, some amateur detective hiding behind door frames and peeking through blinds. But I needed to know where my brother went when he disappeared with my money. So when he shuffled out around 10, wearing that same gray hoodie, I waited exactly 3 minutes, then slipped on my jacket and followed. I kept my distance, half a block behind, pretending to check my phone every time he turned around. He looked paranoid enough that I wondered if he knew I was there. The city felt wrong at night, too quiet, too open. My breath fogged up in the cold as I trailed him past the 24-hour laundromat, the shuttered bakery, the corner store that never bothered to replace its flickering neon sign. I thought he'd head somewhere shady. A bar, maybe, or the grimy bus station by the overpass. But instead, he ducked into the pharmacy by the gas station, the one that smelled like floor cleaner and sadness. I waited outside, pacing next to the garbage can overflowing with empty coffee cups. I must have looked like a creep. Hood up, glancing through the window every few seconds like I was casing the place for a stick-up. 10 minutes later, he came out with a small white paper bag. He shoved it deep in his pocket, shoulders hunched like he was guarding the last scraps of warmth in the world. He didn't even look up, just turned and headed back the way he'd come. I didn't follow him home. I didn't have to. I knew exactly where he'd end up, back on my couch, pretending none of this ever happened. I just stood there in the half-lit parking lot, hands shoved in my pockets, watching my breath drift away like smoke. It was just a pharmacy. So what the hell was he doing? Back at the apartment, he was already in his room. Door closed, no light seeping through the crack. I stood outside it for a solid minute, debating if I should knock. Ask him outright. Demand he empty his pockets. But I didn't. I went to bed instead, staring at the ceiling while my brain churned out worst-case scenarios like a busted slot machine. In the morning, he was gone before I woke up. I checked the camera anyway, just to torture myself with what I already knew. Same thing. He took another 20, crept out, came back an hour later. Bag in his pocket. I'd never felt so stupid and so furious at the same time. He was stealing from me to what? Buy cough syrup? Condoms? It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. That night, I decided to end it. No more hiding behind cameras and stakeouts. I needed to look him in the eye and make him say it out loud. So when he came home, I was waiting in the living room. Lights on, camera gone, wallet sitting right there on the coffee table, just to make the point clear. He froze in the doorway, keys halfway out of his pocket, like a raccoon caught raiding the trash. Hey, he said, voice flat, eyes darting to the wallet, then back to me. You're up late. Sit down, I said. My voice sounded too calm, like it wasn't mine at all. He didn't move, just stood there, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I wondered if he'd bolt, make a run for it like some petty thief in a grocery store. But after a few seconds, he dropped his keys on the counter and sat down across from me. We stared at each other. I could feel my pulse in my neck, in my ears, everywhere. You want to tell me where my money's going? I asked. He flinched, just a tiny flicker, like a muscle twitch. What are you talking about? Don't, I snapped, louder than I meant to. He shrank back like I'd thrown something at him. I hated how small he looked, how guilty he looked. I hated that I almost felt sorry for him. I know you've been taking it, I said, forcing my voice down to something human. I've got it on camera. You go in my room, you take the cash, you leave. Same routine every time. So what is it? Drugs? Gambling? Are you in trouble? He looked down at his hands. His nails were bitten to the quick, red and raw. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet I almost missed it. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I snapped. Because from where I'm sitting, you're robbing me blind every week and lying about it to my face. He squeezed his eyes shut, rubbed the heel of his palm against his forehead. He looked like he was trying to crush the words out of his skull. I'm sorry, he said, barely a whisper. I couldn't. I didn't want you to know. Know what? I was half out of my seat now. Adam, what the hell is in that bag? He looked up at me then, really looked at me, and there was something raw in his eyes that made the bottom drop out of my anger. Medication, he said, voice cracking like a kid's. It's just meds, okay? For anxiety. For me. For a second, I thought he was lying again. But the way his shoulders caved and told me he wasn't. And suddenly, the entire fight drained out of me, leaving nothing but the ugly taste of guilt I couldn't spit out if I tried. For a few seconds, all I could do was stare at him like he'd just confessed to murder. Medication. Anxiety. My brother, the human shrug, the professional slacker who used to laugh when I worried about anything, was sitting across from me telling me he'd been pocketing 20s to buy pills he couldn't bear to say out loud. I sank back onto the couch like my spine had given up on holding me upright. My mouth worked around half-formed questions. Why didn't you tell me? Why steal? Why lie? But nothing made it past my tongue. Adam just sat there, hands dangling between his knees, eyes locked on a stain on the carpet that had been there since we moved in. He looked like he wanted to melt right through the floor. You're taking meds, I finally managed, and wow, that was brilliant. Like reading a headline back to someone who wrote it. Yeah. His voice was hoarse. Just for the panic stuff. Doctor gave me a prescription, but insurance doesn't cover it. Not all of it, anyway. And I didn't. I didn't want to ask you. So you just took it? I asked. My voice came out sharper than I meant. He flinched. Great. I was officially the world's worst big brother. Adam shrugged, but it was the saddest shrug I'd ever seen, like he'd forgotten how to lift his shoulders all the way. Didn't want to explain it. Didn't want to see that look. He flicked his eyes up at me for half a heartbeat, then away again. The look you're giving me right now. I wanted to argue. Tell him he was wrong. But the truth was, he wasn't. I probably did look at him like he'd grown a second head. I ran a hand through my hair. It felt greasy, like I hadn't showered in days. Maybe I hadn't. I've been too busy playing secret detective, after all. Why didn't you just ask, man? You know I'd have given you money. His laugh was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard. Half cough, half bark. Yeah, I know. That's the problem. What the hell does that mean? I asked. Adam leaned back, rubbed his palms on his jeans like he was trying to scrub off his skin. It means I didn't want to be your problem. Again, Mom already thinks I'm broken enough as it is. I didn't want you thinking it too. Adam, you live on my couch, how? Exactly. He snapped, loud enough that I jumped. His eyes finally met mine, blazing with a rawness I hadn't seen since we were kids, and he punched a hole in Dad's shed wall because he couldn't get the door open. I already live on your couch. I already eat your food. I'm the screw-up. I didn't want to add crazy to the list, all right? I should have said you're not crazy. I should have said you're my brother. I should have said I don't care if you're anxious, we'll figure it out. But my brain was stuck in glue, and all I managed was a useless, so you thought stealing was better? He barked out another bitter laugh. Guess so. At least if you caught me, you'd hate me for something I could fix. I could pay you back. I couldn't. Fix the other thing. The silence that fell between us was so heavy I felt like it was pressing my ribs into my lungs. I stared at the chipped coffee table. He stared at the floor. We both sat in that sticky quiet, listening to the hum of the fridge in the kitchen. Finally, I got up and disappeared into my room. I heard him mumble something behind me, maybe my name, maybe sorry, but I ignored it. I needed a minute. Or 10. Or a year. I pulled open my sock drawer, fished out the crumpled envelope where I kept my real savings. Not the 20 here, 10 there. The just-in-case fund. A couple $100 I'd been hoarding for emergencies. I stared at the bills for a while, thumbing through them like they might tell me what the hell I was supposed to do next. I thought about all the times he'd snuck in here, how easy it would have been to take this money instead. He hadn't. He'd taken just enough to cover what he needed, bit by bit, like that somehow made him less of a thief. I almost laughed. It wasn't funny, but my brain didn't know what else to do with it. When I came back out, he was still on the couch, hunched over like he'd folded himself in half. He looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. No tears, he wasn't that kind of crier, but close. I dropped the envelope on the table in front of him. He didn't touch it. What's that? He asked, voice raw. Money, I said. You need it? Take it. But next time, you ask. Or hell, just tell me what you need. Don't sneak around like you're some raccoon in my kitchen. He cracked a smile at that, tiny, sad, but real. Did you just call me a raccoon? Yeah, I said. A thieving raccoon with anxiety issues. His laugh this time was real too. Short, but warm. Something unclenched in my chest hearing it. He picked up the envelope like it might bite him. I don't want your money, man. Tough, I said. You're taking it. And tomorrow we're gonna find you a doctor who doesn't charge you a limb for basic help. And maybe, I forced the next words out like splinters, maybe you can tell me what's going on in your head. So you don't have to keep doing the shady midnight pharmacy run crap. Adam looked at me for a long second. Really looked at me. Then he nodded, slow. Yeah, he said. Okay. And just like that, after years of half conversations and mumbled small talk, I realized this was the first time in forever we were actually talking. And God help me, I hoped it wouldn't be the last. The next morning was awkward in that way only a morning after a fight can be, like the air itself was embarrassed to be here. I woke up to the smell of burnt toast, which meant Adam was trying to make it up to me by destroying my kitchen one appliance at a time. I found him hunched over the toaster, scraping black edges off bread with a butter knife like he could salvage it if he just believed hard enough. He didn't hear me at first. Or maybe he did and pretended he didn't, because facing me was probably worse than facing charcoal toast. You're gonna set the smoke alarm off again, I said, leaning against the doorframe. He jumped a little, just a twitch of his shoulders, then shot me this sheepish grin I hadn't seen since we were teenagers trying to hide evidence of our latest dumb idea. Thought I'd make breakfast. I raised an eyebrow at the breadcrumbs covering the counter. You did. It's just mostly carbon now. He snorted. He actually snorted. A week ago, that would have annoyed me. Today, it felt like maybe we weren't about to sink back into pretending none of last night happened. Coffee? He asked, lifting the pot. God, yes. I pulled out a stool and sat at the counter while he poured us both mugs. I watched him like he'd disappear if I blinked too long. There was something different about him this morning, less hunched, maybe. Or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time in months. He slid my mug over and leaned on the other side of the counter. We both drank in silence. My brain kept reaching for words, then chickening out and stuffing them back down. I could see him doing the same. So, I said finally, "You're going to show me what you've been taking?" He flinched, but nodded. He shuffled over to his room and came back with the little white pharmacy bag. He emptied it onto the counter, an amber pill bottle with his name on the label. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands like I'd find the real answers on the back. His name. A generic prescription for anxiety. No big scary words. No secret. Just normal. Necessary. Human. You could have told me, I said. I know. He looked down at his chipped coffee mug, turning it in slow circles. Didn't want to. Felt like, if I said it out loud, it'd be real. You'd look at me and see a mess. I already knew you were a mess, I said. He looked up, startled, and I cracked a grin so he'd know I wasn't trying to land a cheap shot. I mean, look at you. You can't even make toast. He barked a laugh louder than last night, but still edged with something raw. He picked at the label on the bottle, peeling it back and smoothing it down again. It's not just the pills, you know? I've been trying to talk to someone, too. Cheap clinic downtown. It helps, kinda. Good, I said. I meant it. I didn't know what else to say. What's the Hallmark card phrase for thanks for stealing my money so you didn't have a panic attack? But good was a start. We sat there, trading sips of coffee and half-hearted jokes. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. Just tired. Familiar. After a while, I cleared my throat. Look. About the money. I'm not mad. Well, okay. I was mad. Really mad. But I get it now. Next time you need something, just ask. I'm not going to say no if it's going to help you not lose your mind, all right? He didn't answer right away. Just nodded, eyes focused on the swirl of steam from his mug. You think Mom knows? He asked. I shrugged. Probably not. She'd worry herself sick. She still calls me twice a week to remind me to wear sunscreen. I don't think she's ready for Adam's got anxiety attacks on top of that. Yeah, he murmured. Guess not. A thought struck me then, one that should have come sooner, if I were any good at this brother thing. Hey, you want to tell her? Or do you want me to? He startled, like I'd suggested we call her right this second. No, God, no. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Just, let me get my shit together first. I don't want to dump this on her until I know I can handle it. Okay. I nodded. Your call. But you don't handle it alone, yeah? He looked up at me then. Really looked, like last night, but clearer somehow. A flicker of that kid I'd grown up with, the one who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms because he thought the lightning would come through his window and find him. Yeah, he said. His voice cracked. He cleared it. Yeah, okay. We didn't hug. We're not that kind of family. But he reached across the counter and flicked my coffee mug with his finger, like that was enough. And maybe it was. Maybe it would have to be. I glanced at the bottle again. Medication for Adam. I wondered how long he'd been carrying all this around, quiet panic tucked under that stupid hoodie, trying not to be more of a burden than he already thought he was. Part of me felt like I'd failed him, that I should have seen it sooner, done something. But another part, quieter but stronger, reminded me that I was seeing him now. And maybe that counted for something. When he got up to clean the toaster, and somehow make it worse, I sipped my lukewarm coffee and watched him fuss with the crumbs. For the first time in months, the apartment felt like ours again, like maybe we weren't just two strangers orbiting the same couch. Maybe, just maybe, we were brothers again. And maybe that was enough to fix at least a piece of this mess. The next few days were a weird mix of fragile truce and slow thaw. Adam didn't steal from me again, not that I'd given him the chance. The envelope of cash stayed in my top drawer, but I handed him a couple 20s up front, made him write down what his pills cost, even threatened to go to the pharmacy with him, so he wouldn't have to skulk around like a raccoon in a hoodie anymore. He rolled his eyes at that but didn't argue. Small victories. I'd like to say things got better overnight, like one awkward, half-broken confession was enough to patch up years of silence and resentment. But the truth is, we just stumbled through it, one awkward moment at a time. Monday night, I came home from work to find him sprawled on the couch, headphones in, staring at the ceiling like it was about to give him the answers to life's great mysteries. I flopped down in the armchair across from him, cracked open a beer, and waited for him to notice me. He didn't. Finally, I tugged a headphone off his ear. Hey, you good? He startled, big shock, and gave me this look that hovered between annoyance and gratitude. Yeah, just breathing. I snorted into my beer. Solid hobby. You should keep it up. He flipped me off half-heartedly but didn't put the headphones back in. We sat there in the soft blue glow of the TV muted, because neither of us was really watching it, while the city hummed outside our window like it always did. A few nights later, I found him at the kitchen table, bills spread out in front of him, phone calculator open. He jumped when I walked in like a guilty teenager caught with a cigarette. Relax, I said. Not gonna yell at you for doing math. He snorted. I'm just trying to figure out if I can cover the copay next month without needing. He trailed off, flicking a glance at me. Without needing to rob your idiot brother? I finished for him. He winced, but the ghost of a smile tugged at his mouth. Yeah, that. I slid into the chair across from him, grabbed one of the crumpled receipts, and squinted at his chicken scratch notes. Okay, let's see how screwed you are. We spent an hour going through his pathetic finances, old paycheck stubs, random side gig cash, the laughable leftovers from his last job. It was like piecing together a puzzle with half the pieces chewed up by a dog. But it was something. When we finished, he leaned back, rubbed his eyes. I need to find better work. Or any work. Can't keep living off your charity forever. I shrugged. You can, technically. I'll just guilt trip you into doing all my laundry for the rest of your life. He barked a laugh that sounded more real than anything I'd heard from him in months. Deal. You like pink socks, right? Love them, I said. Then, softer, we'll figure it out, man. One step at a time. He nodded, staring at the mess of receipts. His fingers drummed a nervous beat on the table. You know, I was going to tell you. About the meds. Eventually. I just couldn't find the right way. There's never a right way, I said. Life's just messy like that. He huffed a tiny laugh. Yeah, guess so. It's funny. Once he said it out loud, it was like the thing lost some of its teeth. He didn't talk my ear off about panic attacks or sleepless nights, but sometimes he'd slip little pieces out in casual conversation, like puzzle pieces he trusted me to hold on to. One night he knocked on my door around midnight, eyes red-rimmed, hair sticking up like he'd been wrestling his pillow. You awake? He asked. No. I lied, sitting up. What's up? Couldn't sleep. Brain's doing that thing again. I scooted over, patted the edge of my bed. He hesitated, grown man, 26 years old, still my kid brother in the ways that mattered, and sat down. We didn't say much. Didn't need to. Just sat there while he picked at a loose thread on my blanket. Both of us pretending we weren't 15 years past the age where this kind of thing was supposed to stop. Eventually he yawned, muttered, thanks, and trudged back to his room. I lay awake after he left, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long it would take before this stopped feeling like temporary damage control and started feeling like normal. Some nights I catch myself replaying that footage in my head. Adam creeping into my room, stealing a 20 like it was the worst sin in the world. And I hate it. I hate that it had to be that way for him to finally open his mouth. But I also get it now. The shame. The fear of being too much. I carry my own mess. I just hide it better. A few days ago, he asked if I'd come with him to his next appointment. He said it real casual, like he wouldn't care if I said no. I said yes before he could finish the sentence. We're still not fixed. He's still Adam, the raccoon with anxiety issues and burnt toast. I'm still me. Paranoid, tired, and learning to shut up and listen when it counts. But we're talking. That's new. That's something. And for now, it's enough. Family looks after family. Mom was right about that, just not in the neat, Hallmark way she pictured. It's messy, eh? Louder. More honest. And somehow, I think we're both better for it.